2021 NCAA football champions are Alabama. This is Alabama's 13th national title for football. Unbelievable. So Alabama defeated Ohio State 52-24. Look, we predicted this was going to be close. There was nothing close about this game. It was close for like the first quarter, maybe the beginning of the second. After that, Alabama just went all out. But you know what? Let me go over some stats for you, okay? I usually start with the quarterback. We're not going to do that today, okay? We're going to start with Devonte Smith. Let me tell you something. I always thought that Jamar Chase had the greatest season in college football, okay? I always thought that. I looked at it, I was like, Jamar Chase is such a great wide receiver. He's so amazing at what he does. I mean, 1,700 yards, 20 TDs. Then we go to Devonte Smith, and Devonte Smith, with this game, solidified why he might be a college football legend. Okay? Devonte Smith had 12 receptions, 215 yards, 3 TDs in one half. Got hurt in the first half, did not play for the rest of the game. He broke the record for most yards in a national championship game, and he only played a half, Nate. Just let that process through your head. In one half, he broke the record. Imagine if he played two.
Would have completely broken it. He would have broken it even more.
Absolutely. So that's Devonte Smith, and he was awarded offensive player of the game. Now we're gonna go to the rest of the team. So Mac Jones, he went 36 for 45, 5 TDs, 464 yards, and he did have a fumble, and it was recovered by Ohio State. But that was honestly the only negative in his game. He was absolutely electric. He absolutely did everything that he could possibly do to beat Ohio State, and he did not just beat them, he annihilated them on offense. Now we're going to go to Najee Harris. Najee Harris had 22 rushes, 79 yards, 2 TDs, and he also had 7 receptions, 79 yards, and a receiving touchdown. Look, Najee Harris was amazing out there. And, I mean, he did an absolutely phenomenal job. He's been phenomenal this whole year, and especially his whole career at Alabama. He's such a strong runner. He plays with such an aggression, and I love it. John Mechie, who might be the number 1 wide receiver next year, because Devonte Smith and Jaylen Waddle ain't going to be there. John Mechie had 8 receptions and 81 yards. Slade Bolden had a touchdown. And that's basically the stars on offense. But obviously the number 1 star on offense, Nate, was Devonte Smith. Devonte Smith lit the field up in one half. He hurt his thumb. He injured it, and he wasn't allowed to play for the next half. But, I mean, in one half, he did as much as a receiver on their best night can do.
So with that, anything do what most receivers do in the NFL in 4 quarters.
Absolutely. Now I'm going to go to Alabama's defense. So the defensive player of the game went to Christian Barrimore. Christian Barrimore had 5 tackles and a sack. Look, Christian Barrimore, this is a guy I really had my eye on as like a potential elite draft prospect in this draft. And obviously I usually look at people to see who I want the Vikings to get. And honestly, this is the top guy right now. They need defensive tackle, and honestly, he is the centerpiece to the Alabama defense right there. Christian Barrimore. He is insane, amazing. He's an amazing player, and he had a great game. And then other defensive players that really did contribute were Christian Harris. He had 6 tackles, and Dylan Moses. He also had 6 tackles. Surprisingly, those 3 guys were the top 3 guys. And let me tell you something. Besides Christian Barrimore's sack, there wasn't a sack from Alabama. So they did really good defensively without actually showing how good they did defensively. You know what I'm saying? Because if I were to tell you these 3 guys stats, you wouldn't think they beat a team 52-24. So before I get to Ohio State, your thoughts on Alabama?
What's there for me to say? I mean, they absolutely like you and I said, this game was gonna be close, but damn it, it wasn't. They just absolutely annihilated Ohio into next year. I mean, there's one guy I want to give credit to. It's Jaylen Waddle. I mean, this dude wasn't even supposed to play this game. Right. Did he play? Did he play at his best? No. This dude suffered a fractured ankle, and he wasn't expected to play. But he went out there, and he contributed to Alabama's win. Was it the smartest thing in the world? No, but he's showing his true passion for the sport, and I gotta give that kid a lot of credit. We give Mac Jones and Devonte Smith credit, and they absolutely deserve it. But this kid went out there with a not even fully healed ankle and just went out there and did his thing. I gotta give him credit
Absolutely
for
agree
this.
with you. And to follow up on what you just said about Jaylen Waddle, there is one guy who I got to give credit to, who wasn't at his 100%, but he still played, and that was Justin Fields. Justin Fields went 17 for 33, 194 yards, one TD, and he also had 64 rushes, 66 rushes for 64 yards. Excuse me. So just like you said with Jaylen Waddle, you also got to remember Justin Fields had some banged up ribs from the last game that he played.
Right.
And I mean, and for him to come in and play like this, I mean, I got to give him all the credit in the world. Justin Fields is honestly a very tough kid. And I mean, he's definitely, I believe he will be a top 5 draft prospect. I think he should definitely be the number 1 pick in this draft without a doubt. I know people are going to say Trevor, and I do agree Trevor is a better quarterback, but and has proven more, but I just feel like Justin Fields should be the number 1 pick. I feel like that what he did in the national championship game, I know it doesn't make any sense with me, but hear me out. Trevor Lawrence is a better quarterback. Okay, I'm not denying that. The reason why I believe Justin Fields should be the number 1 pick is because I believe that when it comes to recent memory, they go off of that. You know what I'm saying? Opposed to what they did in the past. So for instance, you know, you got so many guys who just rise to the occasion like so quickly and so early and so like and late into like the draft process, and then they end up getting picked before other guys. So with that being said, I think Justin Fields, if I were to predict that, I think he will go number 1 to the Jaguars, and Trevor might go to the Jets or even a different team. But that's another talk for a different time. As for this talk, the only thing I gotta say is Justin Fields is a very tough kid, and I gotta give him all the credit in the world and respect. Master Teague had 15 rushes, 65 yards, and 2 TDs. See, here's the thing. I pointed to the Ohio State running backs being, I think those two were going to make more of an impact than Najee Harris. I was completely wrong. Najee Harris had a bigger impact than those two running backs combined because Trey Sermon only had 1 rush for 2 yards. I think that if Ohio State kind of made Trey Sermon contribute more, I think they could have had a closer game. Maybe, possibly, they would have won the game. I'm not sure because it didn't happen. But I believe that the running game should have been a bigger factor in this game than just 15 rushes.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, man.
As for other guys, Garrett Wilson had 3 receptions, 50 yards, and a TD. Chris Olave had 869 yards. And so, as for those 2 receivers, I gotta say they did a good job with kind of slowing down Chris Olave, because this was a guy we were talking about. He wasn't at a Devonte Smith level because, let's be honest, nobody this year was, but he was a pretty elite wide receiver, and this is definitely a first-round pick. And I think they did a great job with locking him. I think they did a great job with slowing him down. I got to give a lot of credit to Patrick Sutton. He did a pretty good job of slowing Chris Olave down because it went your number 1 versus their number 1, and 69 yards was okay, but it wasn't the game that you were expecting out of Chris Olave. So I got to give him a lot of credit in the Alabama secondary. Now for the defense for Ohio State, their defense actually shined more than Alabama's, to be honest with you. It doesn't look that way, but they did. Like statistically, like Tough Borland had 12 tackles. Sevyn Banks had 7. Yes, Sevyn Banks, 7 tackles. That's pretty funny. I'm sorry. Baron Browning had a sack, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. That was the guy who created the fumble on Mac Jones when he sacked him. Antoine Jadison, he Jr. He also had a sack. Justin Hillard had 8 tackles, and Pete Werner had 8 tackles. So when you look at the stats for defense, right, it looks better for Ohio State. But the reason why I believe that Alabama was so much better than them is because they might not have the defensive stats to kind of prove that they were better defensively. But when you look at the other stuff that we didn't mention, like the passes defended, they did a better job of locking down guys and making Justin Fields' job difficult to complete the ball. And they maybe caused a lot of pressure on Justin Fields, which maybe not have sacked. They didn't sack him one time. Again, Alabama was sacked him one time, but it's a lot more than just sacks. You know, they probably pressured him a lot to the point where he was getting nervous and he couldn't throw the ball the way he wanted to, and it really disrupted his game in the running game. So with that being said, I got to give Alabama's defense a lot of credit just for keeping them in check, you know? And I mean, 52 points, the offense just did what they do best and just lit up the field. I mean, and if this don't prove that Devonte Smith is an elite wide receiver, I don't know what does. Because there's some guys in college that you just look at and you just know they're going to be stars. Like, you don't got to see anything else. You know they're going to be stars. And as long as Devonte Smith keeps his work ethic and keeps that chip on his shoulder as the 6'1", 175-pound kid, he keeps that chip on his shoulder, Devonte Smith could be a big star in this league.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. Alabama was on top of their game. I mean, I agree with how you say Ohio State's defense shined more than Alabama's defense. I mean, I think the reason why Ohio State lost that game is obvious because their offense was just outmatched, you know.
Right. Statistically, Ohio State did better. I think when you look at the game and you look at the score, it shows Alabama's defense was better because they did the tiny things that you don't keep stats of to change that game, like the pressuring the quarterback and covering your man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, Chris Olave only had 69 yards. That was their top wide receiver. So that stuff, the stuff that you don't keep like numbers of and stats of, that's what they did. That's what Alabama did better. But as of statistically, Ohio State had a statistically better defense.
Right, I absolutely agree, and because of that, Alabama won the national championship. So congratulations to them and everybody that fought so hard for this title.
Yeah, before you end this video, I just want to also say one thing that we haven't said. Nick Saban, this is his 7th national championship overall. This is his 6th in Alabama. And with 7 national championships, he has the most national championships than any other head coach in college football history. So with that being said, congratulations to Nick Saban on a historic career that will just keep on continuing.